G'day, Dave here, and we're looking at Matthew chapter 2. And I reckon it's more important that we read Matthew 2 than you simply listen to me. So I'm going to read right through it, and then we're going to talk about what it means. Let's follow. Matthew chapter 2, verse 1. After Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea, during the time of King Herod, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem and asked, "Where is the one who has been born King of the Jews? We saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him." When King Herod heard this, he was disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him. When he had called together all the people's chief priests and teachers of the law, he asked them where the Messiah was to be born. "In Bethlehem in Judea," they replied, "for this is what the prophet has written. But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for out of you will come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel." Then Herod called the Magi secretly and found out from them the exact time the star had appeared. He sent them to Bethlehem and said, "Go and search carefully for the child, and as soon as you find him, report to me, so that I too may go and worship him." After they had heard the king, they went on their way, and the star that they had seen when it rose went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were overjoyed. And on coming to the house, they saw the child with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and they worshipped him. And then they opened their treasures and presented him with gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their country by another route. When they'd gone, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream. "Get up," he said, "take the child and his mother and escape to Egypt. Stay there until I tell you, for Herod is going to search for the child to kill him." So he got up and he took the child and his mother during the night and left for Egypt. And where he stayed until the death of Herod, and so was fulfilled what the Lord had said through the prophet, "Out of Egypt I called my son." When Herod realized that he'd been outwitted by the Magi, he was furious, and he gave orders to kill all the boys in Bethlehem and its vicinity who were 2 years old and under, in accordance with the time that he'd learned from the Magi. Then what was said through the prophet Jeremiah was fulfilled. "A voice is heard in Ramah, weeping and great mourning, Rachel weeping for her children and refusing to be comforted because they are no more." After Herod died, an angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt and said, "Get up, take the child and his mother and go to the land of Israel, for those who were trying to take the child's life are dead." And so he got up and he took the child and his mother and went to the land of Israel. But when he heard that Archelaus was reigning in Judea in place of his father Herod, he was afraid to go there. Having been warned in a dream, he withdrew to the district of Galilee, and he went and lived in a town called Nazareth. So was fulfilled what was said through the prophets, that he would be called a Nazarene. Well, you probably know the Christmas story pretty well, or at least we think we do. Maybe we've sung carols, "We Three Kings of Orient Are," but the problem is it's not entirely accurate. When you look at a passage like Matthew chapter 2, we're not told that there are any kings who come from the Orient. We're told that there are magi, stargazing wizards perhaps. Here are people who are into astrology. They follow the stars. Stars shape their futures. Stars direct their paths. We're not told, secondly, that there are three of them. They gave 3 gifts, certainly, but you don't need 3 people to give 3 gifts. We're just not told. There's at least 2, but maybe 5, 10, could be 3. We don't know. But we're on solid ground when we talk about them having come from the Orient, or at least from the East. They are possibly from Arabia, or maybe Persia or Babylon, but we're told that they are from the other nations. They're not Jews. They aren't people who were reading their Bibles. No, they've followed a star. But having said this, Matthew chapter 2 is about 2 kings. You can pick it up in verse 1 and 2. Listen to this. "After Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea, during the time of King Herod." So here's the first king. Magi from the east came to Jerusalem, that's where this first king was, and asked, "Where is the one who has been born King of the Jews? We saw his star when it rose and we've come to worship him." Now, we're told that this is pretty confronting news. After all, Herod thinks he's the king of the Jews. And these guys from a foreign nation have come saying, where is he? We've heard that he's to be born somewhere around here. And it's the contrast between these two kings that dominates this chapter. Herod is somebody, well, he didn't know his Bible particularly well. If he's going to be the king of the Jews, he gets teachers of the law and chief priests to come in and instruct him on where this king was to be born. And they take him to the scriptures and they say, but you, Bethlehem in the land of Judah, it is out of Bethlehem that the ruler will come. Secondly, this is a man who can't be trusted. He says that he wants to go and worship him, but Joseph discovers in a dream that Herod is searching for this child in order to kill him. You can read that in verse 13. Here is a man who's paranoid about his kingship, and it leads him to kill. And we see the horror of this when you go down further to verse 16. When Herod realized that he'd been outwitted by the Magi, he was furious, and he gave orders to kill all the boys in Bethlehem and its vicinity who were 2 years old and under. 2 years old. He's threatened by infants. This is a paranoid, homicidal maniac. This king is threatened by these young boys, and what he does is he ends up killing his own people. Friends, history tells us a number of things about King Herod, and they're not nice. Here is a man who slaughtered the remainder of the former ruling family. Here is one who put to death a half of the Sanhedrin. He killed 300 court officers. He even executed his own wife and his mother-in-law and 3 of his sons. And to top it off, on his deathbed, he arranged that all the notable men in Jerusalem be gathered up and killed as soon as his death is announced, so that instead of people celebrating his death and rejoicing, they are tied up in mourning the loss of their own leaders. This is a nasty, nasty piece of work. And the choice, I take it, in chapter 2 is, who do we want for a king? And it's a bit of a no-brainer, is it? Do you want a murdering maniac? Or do you want the one who's been announced as the fulfillment of God's promises? Here is God among us. He's come to save his people from their sins. He is the one who will go to the cross to die for his people. Here is the one who will be a shepherd for his people Israel. This man, Herod, isn't a shepherd. He's actually a wolf, and he's come to devour the sheep. Jesus, by contrast, is the one who comes to bring care, to bring feed, to bring focus, to bring a future for his people. And the sad irony here is that when this king, Jesus, comes to his own, they try to kill him. And so he has to escape to the Gentiles, to the Israelites. Jesus goes into exile. Well, friends, it's not the Jews who worship Jesus in this chapter. It's actually the strange men from the east. It's the foreigners. It's the Gentile. It's the one from the nations. Remember the promises that were made to Abraham back in chapter 1? That he would be the father of a great nation, and that God would bless him, and through him all the nations would be blessed. Well, we're starting to see this happening. Here is the forever king who's arriving, and already there are people from the nations who are coming to bow before him. The problem is, we don't often want to do that. It's a hard thing to give up rule of our own lives. We don't want one in authority over us. Herod certainly didn't, but what you see in the extreme case here is it's common to humanity. Men, women, children. We'd prefer to be in control ourselves. Deep down, we don't want anybody ruling us. We like our autonomy. We want to live out our own dreams, set our own plans and priorities, live our own lifestyle. And so it's so easy to push Jesus away. We do that so naturally. And sadly, even within the church, you find people who are happy to have Jesus as their saviour, but they don't want to have him as their king. They like the insurance policy that comes at the end of the day, but they don't want to live in the kingdom of Jesus here and now. They don't want to submit to Jesus as their king. They don't really want to worship him. It's so easy to give lip service to the worship of Jesus. Coming to Jesus is costly. We'll see that more as we go through the gospel. But as you come near to Jesus and as you bow your knee to him, as you give up authority over your own life and submit to the one that God has sent, as you acknowledge Jesus as your King, as your Lord, and as your God, there you will find life. There you'll find real freedom. There you will find a future. And it's to be found by bowing to the true King, King Jesus. Will you do that?